Hello, folks.
But it's barely shifting that dial. Do you recognise that there is a cost to not reforming the system as well, both to human costs but also to getting people in work?
You won't believe what just happened in this heated committee hearing.
Or anything new? It's just going to pay you.
For the first time, Keir Starmer was properly grilled on the issues that Labour keep dodging: NHS collapse, social care crisis, election postponements, and even secret pharma lobbying.
I've heard a lot of the conversation about tariffs, and you'll know in the past President Trump's approach to our NHS when it came to UK-US trade negotiations. He had his eye firmly on parts of the NHS. Now, you've said publicly that nothing is off the table.
This wasn't a press briefing, it was a political reckoning. And Starmer? Completely on the ropes. You'll hear devastating truths about how billions in taxpayer money are vanishing into broken systems.
We made available £3.7 billion of additional funding for social care authorities in 25-26.
You'll see how public service reform is being stalled just long enough to dodge accountability. And you'll witness one of the most ruthless interrogations in modern British politics. Watch closely. This is the stuff they don't want you to see. The Labour machine, the media, the lobbyists, they're all hoping this gets buried. But it won't. Not if you like, comment, subscribe, and share this now. And whatever you do watch until the very end, you need the full picture to know what's coming next.
Prime Minister, so following on from the question from Ms. Owen in particular, thinking about those with disabilities, we had a round table, the Health and Social Care Committee, in this very room, and almost where I'm sat was a woman who described her experience of NHS and care. And the way she paraphrased it was, the NHS keeps me alive, but social care is what helps me to thrive. So, Prime Minister, how do you see the role of social care in our community and our own economy?
Hugely important. In its own right and working alongside the NHS. And I think, like most people, I've long thought we ought to reform it, which is why we've asked Louise Casey to carry out that reform programme and to do it on a cross-party basis. She starts her work this month. I have expressly asked her to try to reach out straight away on a cross-party basis, because we need to reform social care. We need to make sure that if we do reform it, it's lasting reform. I don't think that that's possible unless it's a cross-party consensus about how we go forward with social care. It is hugely important, as I say, in its own right, and to complement what we do with the NHS. Very hard to get the NHS back working as we want if we don't also sort out social care.
Very true. Do you see social care as mainly a drain on the Treasury or as an enabler to the economy?
An enabler to the economy. And my sister's a care worker, by the way, so I know this firsthand. I mean, it's about ensuring that people can live to their full potential for as long as possible in their lives and have fulfilled lives.
Well, I'm pleased to hear you say that, but then do you share my frustration that much of the sector feels as well, that 3 years, which then butts up any decision close to an election. Now, when we've had social care reforms be kiboshed in the past, it has been during election campaigns. Surely the way to solve this would be to get this done and dusted during this Parliament, not kick it into the long grass, so that it can then be kiboshed at the next election.
Yeah. I mean, firstly, I understand your frustration that this has been pushed down the road too many times. The way I see it is this. One, we need to take time to get it right, and it needs to be cross-party. And Louise Casey is, in my view, the right person on a project like this. I've got huge experience working with Louise Casey. But that shouldn't stop us doing things straight away, to answer your question, which is why we made available £3.7 billion of additional funding for social care authorities in 25-26. That is really important as a sort of first step, and obviously took steps in relation to carers allowance, weekly earnings limit, a fair pay agreement for for adult social care, hugely important. All the analysis shows that we haven't got a sufficient workforce. It's a fragmented workforce, and that most people leaving social care are leaving social care to go to the NHS because they can get onto an integrated framework for progression, which they don't have. So I think all of those things can be done before we even get to the bigger question. So I don't think we should rush the work that Louise Case is doing. I think that's the right timetable, but I accept your challenge that what we can't do is to sit back until she gets to that part of her report and do nothing in the interim. And I think that the money we've put in, the fair pay agreements and other measures are really important. I should also say that it's among the reasons I commissioned Louise to report in 2 stages, one in 2026 and then later in 2028. And we can get the 2026 recommendations and start acting on them before we get to 2028. So I don't agree with you totally that we should just go sort of both feet in with all the reform right now. We need time on that, but I do accept the thrust of your challenge, which is we do need to do things now, and that's why we're doing what we are doing in the interim.
Do you accept that much of that money, in fact, has not been able to get to the front line because of the NICS increases?
Well,
social care sits outside, so whilst local authorities have had some money flow down to them, it barely covers the NICS increases for those social care providers.
I mean, it's £3.7 billion of additional funding. That's a huge uplift. It's 6.8% in cash terms.
But the amount that's going to the independent social care providers is about 800 million to
880 million.
Indeed,
yeah,
to local authorities, which is about the bill for the NICS increase.
Well, look, I mean, it's a huge cash terms increase that's
which isn't actually going
through.
to deliver anything new. It's just going to pay you.
Well, it's alongside the work we're doing on carers allowance. It's alongside the work we're doing on fair pay agreements, which I do think will make a material difference. It's a signitent amount of additional funding to the funding that was put in before.
But do you see
when times are quite, when as you will know, there are quite significant budgetary constraints at the moment.
Indeed, and you see the issue here is that we're trying to shift a dial, and the money that you're talking about is always welcome, but it's barely shifting that dial. Do you recognise that there is a cost to not reforming the system as well, both to human costs but also to getting people in work and keeping them in work?
Yes, that's why I want to reform the system, absolutely.
Because we are currently looking at this as a committee, but are surprised to find that the government has barely looked at it from that lens. So perhaps an undertaking from you to look at it through that lens would help the Treasury to see what you and I clearly both see, which is that social care is worth investing in. Yeah,
I've always approached this on the basis that the health service and social care are important for physical, mental health and the support that people need throughout their lives, but they're also hugely important to the economy. For reasons we just rehearsed in other answers, but the obvious, which is the longer people are unable to go back into work if that's what they want to do, the worse it is for them economically and for our economy more generally. So the two go together. And when we set out our plan for change, the number one mission was economic growth, but all the others, to my mind, ladder up to that, including what we're doing on health and social care.
Thank you. And just one final slight about turn. We have heard a lot of the conversation about tariffs, and you'll know in the past President Trump's approach to our NHS when it came to UK-US trade negotiations. He had his eye firmly on parts of the NHS. Now, you've said publicly that nothing is off the table. Does that include everything to do with the NHS, which includes drug patents, negotiated prices for medicines, and market access for US companies?
Well, I've been very protective of the approach we take the NHS in any dealings with any other country, because it is our greatest asset and we are not trading it away. And that's the approach that I take here.
Including all the areas I've just mentioned?
Well, including the data that we hold, which is private information. It must be held securely. I do think there's work we can do on what use we make of that data, not so much in trade agreements, but right here in the United Kingdom in terms of advancing our own understanding of medicines and preventative measures. But I take a protective approach when it comes to the NHS.
Thank you. Chair.
If you care about truth, accountability, and the future of this country, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to see it.